Come on. There's our go live box.
Live.
Yeah. It's good to see you all. Sometimes when I see you all on Sunday, I feel like we haven't communicated a lot during the week for the last couple of weeks. I
No, we
miss
It
haven't.
just feels like the weeks have been about a month long.
How about that?
that's it. We got to do better. We got to
The
do.
last Sunday of February.
Can you believe
Don't
that?
say that.
Oh,
I cannot believe that.
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
The quarter is almost done, you guys. This year is going by fast, but
Yes.
we still have a
Oh, wait.
lot ahead of us.
And we got an extra day this year, so make the
How
most of
about
it.
that?
No,
How
what do
about
we
Yeah.
do with that? What do we do with that extra day? I've never quite figured that out, but we will. I think we've got everything lined up. Victoria, you're number one in the weekend
All
review.
righty.
It's
We'll
two,
review it.
three, and we've got all of that laid out. We've got a good guest, great guest, and she's got a great concept that she's going to share with us tonight. And I am looking forward to it. You know, we have some folk that come on, guests that come on with us sometimes, and we can't wait for the new thing. This is kind of a new thing, so
Yep.
I'm excited that she's going to be sharing with us tonight.
Yes.
Are you guys ready to go? I am
Yep.
ready.
Roll them. Roll
Right.
them. Roll them.
Here we go. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being with us on Authors Up. We welcome our audience tonight, those coming from podcast land and broadcast land and all over.
Exactly.
And we are glad to have you. Glad that you decided to join us on this Sunday evening. Boy, I'm telling you, we were talking about time going by, and it really is going by fast.
Yeah.
Can't believe we are almost out of the second month of the year, if you can believe that. But I say good evening to all of our listeners and viewers, and I also say good evening to our co-host, Ms. Ruth Griffin and Queen Victoria down there. How are you, ladies?
All
We're
right.
good.
Doing all right. Glad to be here.
You good? You
Yep.
sure? There's gonna be a test later.
Okay. I might flunk it. Don't test me. Don't test me.
Make sure everybody's feeling fine. How about we start like we usually do, and let's talk about the weekend review. What was going on? What's going on? What happened in your world, Queen Victoria? What's going on from last week?
I tell you, my aunt passed Friday.
Oh,
My second auntie in 2 months' time, and it's been a little difficult
Mm.
to navigate that one. Um, so I don't even know what to say, but I'm going to keep praising God through it all. You know, try to be encouraging to my family members, and we had a Zoom today at 3 o'clock, and we try to have a family Zoom the last Sunday of each month.
Oh,
And last month, after we buried my other aunt, December, and well, in December, excuse me, it happened in December. And we didn't know if we wanted to have it, but we went ahead and had it anyway. And whoever could come on, come on. And I asked my cousins, did they want to do it again? Some said yes, and some said yes, and then didn't show up, but that's okay. But it's all about the love. So just another reminder that Um, take good pictures whenever you see your people. And everybody was always tired of me putting that camera in the face, but I've got good pictures and I've got good memories. The last time I saw my aunt, she was smiling and she told me she loved me. And so I have those, good memories. And I'm grateful, forever grateful for it. I mean, and this aunt, along with my other aunt, I don't know of a time I'd never, they weren't in my life. So
Mhm.
it's just, and I miss them tremendously already. But we just gonna keep on loving and sharing. And y'all, I'm trying to. Have y'all ever used any of these homeopathic I can't get them out the bottle.
I wondered what you were doing because you've been
I've
playing
been
with that for like 10
twisting
minutes now.
I mean, yeah, and I could see them, and I could look down in there and you twist it, and I could see them, but they won't come out. 'Cause
I forget what the secret is for getting those little things out the bottom. They're not big.
it's, I'm getting, but if I don't get them, I'm gonna cut this thing open. Just put them in another pill bottle. My back was hurting a little bit, and I said, "Well, let me see if I can put these under my tongue and let them, just I can't get them out." And it make you laugh, make you laugh. I got one fell out, but it flew all the way across the room, so I can't get
Well, when
it. Woo!
you go on a search, you'll be on a hunt for your little pill there. So
Honey, I didn't think worry about that pill. I got about 30 more in this bag. This thing. Well, anyway, that's it for me. I'm good. I'm celebrating love. That's what I'm gonna do. And we're
good.
at the end of February. We're at the end of Heart Health Month. We're at the end of Black History Month. I've been sharing authors that I could find. I've learned a lot more. My heart was just opened up to celebrate authors this month. And so it's really been that's been really good for me. So I'm going to end on that note. How was your week, Ruth?
Typical. I'll be
Okay.
honest, I've been sitting here wondering, like, did I do anything extraordinary this week? No. It just, I think some weeks are just like, okay, I got up, went to work,
And the
came
what?
back home, did some projects, got up.
I got one.
Okay.
And we are so glad.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
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 So, do you need more than one though?
It's supposed to have 5, so
Oh, okay.
one down, 4 to go. Woo! Okay.
I think we should just give our time over to her and see. It might be more entertaining.
All
I mean,
right.
seriously, honestly, the only thing of note that I did this week is I picked up. I don't know how I did this. I am reading like 6 books at once, and it is just it's not getting confusing because each one has its own plot line, but it's just like, okay, which one do I want to read now? Okay, let me pick that one and then just go
Wait,
with it.
in addition to the writing that you're doing as well?
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, I'm only reading like 10 minutes here or 5 minutes here, but it's just like, okay. Honestly, I'm not even watching TV anymore. So
See, that reading is your superpower. That's your
I
superpower.
guess it
Okay.
is. But so yeah, that's really the only thing of note. I've got 6 books going on, juggling 6 books at the same time, and they're all interesting. So
Okay, darling.
yeah, yep. So
Enjoy
Andrea,
yourself. Enjoy yourself.
thank you. Andrea.
It was last week was a tough week. It's just a lot of things happening, a lot of things happening that were definitely marked Jesus only. Just
Oh
Amen.
a
gosh.
lot of things that just were not in my control at all. Just
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't anything I could do about them. Wasn't any way that I could change them or fix them. So there were just a lot of prayer moments last week.
Amen.
Um, had someone scheduled for an amputation.
Mm,
There was someone which they put off, thank God.
Oh,
So we
my
never know.
God.
He's at work. He's at work in that situation. Then we had someone else who's starting chemo, had
Wow.
that going on. We had someone had a major meltdown, so they had that going on, and there was
Wow.
just a lot of things. My friend out in California is still battling, um, just stuff. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
light and stuff. But the good news is to be able to turn the corner and know I'm not in it alone, and know that
Amen.
God knew before I knew, and to be able to put my trust in Him and my hope in Him always turns things around a little better for me. And Saturday, I went to a fellowship with the organization called Sisters Who Care. They do a lot
Mm-hmm.
of mission kind of work, and they are collecting 100 Bibles to go to Kenya and Liberia, I think. I'm not quite sure why, but you'll hear me talking about it from now through about the middle of March, because we always talk about what we want to do, and we want to be a part,
Yeah.
and we want to do this. So when I find things that we can do that will be a blessing to somebody else, I like to share, 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 share.
Please do. Please do.
So
Yes.
I'm going to be talking about that in the future. And we went to this place for dinner. It's a pizza place. It's a family-owned pizza place, and man, was it good! It was just. I usually don't like deep dish pizza, but oh my gosh, it was so good. Had the best spinach artichoke dip I've had any,
Oh,
which made me extremely happy. So food is always good. Food makes me happy
that is good.
my day around. So I had a good time doing that. And I'm looking forward to completing some projects, completing our writing project. That's going to be coming up next month, and got to get some writing to Ruth. So it's a busy time. Uh,
Yes.
Next thing we know, it will be Resurrection Sunday. That's going to be in March. So we got just a lot happening and a lot going on, and just glad to be able to share it with my cohorts here on Sunday.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
appreciate you ladies very, very much. And Victoria, you are going to tell us about another just wonderful, not just an author, but just a lady who's got an amazing concept. I think it's an amazing
Yes. Yes.
concept.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she's going to be able to share that with us tonight. Hey, Leah, thank you. I got my mail. Leah has a great book out, and I got her book the other day. So thank you,
Great.
Leah.
And say hi. Did we say hi to Linda too?
Oh, no, I didn't see Linda up there. There she is. Hi, Linda. Linda, say good evening. We're glad she's with us as well. So tell us,
Right.
tell us, Victoria, who we got with us tonight?
All right. Excited about this one too. Ashton Rodenhiser is passionate about lifting the creative spirit in everyone that she meets. She has followed her passion for helping people communicate their ideas and combine that with creativity by founding Mind's Eye Creative Consulting. Over the years, she has brought over 2,500 presentations and conversations to life, either on paper or digitally. She's now on a mission to teach sketchnoting skills to students and professionals on how to use doodling and drawing as their best thinking and learning tool. When she's not working with clients, she's being silly with her 3 young kids and husband in rural Canada. After our short break, we're going to come back and speak with Ashton about her book, which is entitled Beginner's Guide to Sketchnoting. Be right back.
Welcome, Ashton.
Hi,
Hey,
Ashton.
welcome.
So
So you said that was a short break, which really was a dance break. Am I
Right,
right? That
right,
was like
right.
my giant, yeah. What a beautiful way to, I feel like I was just like walking down an aisle, but here I am
Yes.
to take the mic.
We get caught up in the music too.
Yep, it
Yeah,
is.
thank you
It's
so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here to chat
Thank you
with
for
you this
being
evening.
here.
Yeah.
oh, and we are so happy to have you. So
Yeah,
let's
Absolutely.
get started.
sure.
So the title of your book, the full title
Yeah.
is Beginner's Guide to Sketchnoting, Focus Better, Learn Faster, and Remember Longer by Drawing Your Notes. And I think the title says it all. But
There you go.
obviously
That
there's
was
a
the hope.
story. There is a story behind it. So please share.
Yeah, so I really like as a professional, like it's really great when you work for yourself. Can you give yourself like fun titles, right? That you get to like explain to people. So sometimes I like to call myself a professional doodler because then it goes like, ooh, what does that mean? But really, I like the last 10 years, I have been helping people communicate ideas through drawing. So just last week, I was at a 3-day event. I had to travel across the country. They're having conversation and create, and it ended up being like 24 feet long or something like that, with all these the visions, the ideas, the stories that people came up and told me, the presentations on the stage, all weave together into a visual representation. And because most people think in pictures, it resonates with a lot of people. And, we naturally just like to, visualize things without even thinking about it. When we read a story, when we read a book, we create the characters in our mind of like this journey that they're going on, right? Um, so yeah, the sort of idea that kind of came together with the book was being at these events, either in person or virtually, and people being like, "Oh, I wish I could just like bring you to every meeting. I wish you could just like come. They could shrink me down, put me in their pocket, and take me to their boring meetings to try to make it so they can connect to that information a little bit better." And honestly, the skill that I do as a profession is not that hard to learn, even if you don't consider yourself to be a very creative person. So I wrote the book with really, truly beginners in mind because I have never taken an art class. I don't have an art background, but I'm an artist as like a professional, right? So
Wow.
and the first few years of me working in this as a profession, I wanted to get really good at it. Those first few years just wasn't like, it wasn't like beautiful like it is today, being 10 years in. And I didn't tell anybody that I was like, oh, I'm just like making this up as I go along here. I had a lot of the listening, the comprehension, the thinking skills that I could communicate well with words because I got into it as more of a facilitator and as an educator, but less on the art. So I had to really beef up my art skills. And so, I really lean in on that. And I leaned in on that to keep the beginners in mind, and trying to go back to 10 years ago, Ashton, what are the things that I needed to learn as like really like ground level sort of art doodle 101. What does that look like? So that people can feel like, because you can get a lot of benefit, from comprehension and all this stuff from drawing your notes. But most of the time, just the fact that you say draw, like people already have their hands up. They're like, nope, not me. I can't draw. Right. So, so that's what I have to say for now. I probably
No,
answered a couple of your questions in one long breath, but I just have to stop myself.
no, and that's fine. And I think that I don't think it's a new concept. I think it's more along the lines of us realizing the benefits of it. And I shared this story. I got quite the opposite reaction I thought we would get, but I got called out in a meeting one time because I was doodling.
Yes.
I was called out as a woman. The man next to me was not. So it was just, it was a
Yeah.
negative connotation, and I
Mhm.
realized that, it's been a few years. So it's,
Yeah.
I think that minds are changing, but I think
Mhm.
it's, you know, the benefit, and if you'd have asked the man next to me, he would have told you that he concentrates better when he doodles. He was
Right.
taking notes. And I was watching him. I'd worked with him for like 8 years at that point. I understood what he was doing. And for me, when my pen is going, that's when I concentrate when I'm looking.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's a new concept, but putting a name behind it, and
Mhm.
you know, joining it with the word learning and focusing and all of that, I think
Mhm.
that it is definitely beneficial for people. And I think that it's removing the stigma of, oh, you're not paying attention, you're doodling.
Absolutely. I love that story that you shared for so many different reasons. But I think you nailed it on the head when you said like this isn't new. Like this is really natural to us, and for whatever reason we say, well, if you're drawing or doodling, like that's not serious work. Right.
Mm.
Where I think this needs to be leveraged in those situations. Like Sunny Brown, she wrote this book called The Doodle Revolution, and she's got like a really short TED talk, and she talks a mile a minute. It's like 6 minutes, 7 minutes long. The power of doodling. And like she talks about, even in that short TED talk, about how it should be leveraged in situations like that are really like you have a lot of complexity. You're really trying to understand something. Those are the moments that it should be leveraged, right? Not, in the contrary, where most people think like, oh, it's not serious work if you're doodling, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's unfortunately science hasn't caught up. Like, who's going to invest like to research this? Not a lot of people, unfortunately. But the one stat that I usually throw out there is around doodling, and they say that you can remember up to 29% more information just by doodling, right? So like you're doing a good thing. But anyone who gets in trouble for doodling, you call me and I will tell them that you
Okay,
shouldn't be
good.
getting in trouble for it. You call me, I'll let them know. Um, so the way that I like to teach this concept of sketchnoting, which is just more of a popularized term, but like visual note taking, is how can you take those doodles that you might be doing anyways, but just making them more purposeful, making them work for you a little bit better, right? So instead of just like, doing something a little bit mindless to help you stay focused, which is still a good thing and people should do it, you know, and you can draw things and use lines and things to help connect information and bring that information to life. Just to like, I hopefully there will be a stat someday that will say doodling is 29%, but visual note taking is more, because that's just from anecdotally in my experience, that's the case, right? Just making those drawings work for you. And it doesn't even have to be a lot of drawing. It's just like reusing some really simple elements. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I like that. I hope science does catch up.
Yeah, I
So,
hope so too. Yeah.
um, all right. So let me ask this. Who is this book for? And again, I just going through this book, it just brought up a whole lot of stuff. So here's another story.
Yeah.
Probably about 40 years ago now, I remember talking to my mom, and she showed us, my grandfather only had he was an immigrant. He only had a third grade education. And what he would do when he would write, he would always write in block letters. And if he made a
Mhm.
mistake, he would circle it and then cross it out. And that's
Mm,
how he was taught, 50
interesting.
years before that. So, you're
Mm,
talking at, that's a long time. He never changed as far as I know. So,
right.
and we become ingrained in our habits. So,
Right.
is this for, that person starting out? Do we get this for our kids? Is this for me?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, I think the way that I wrote it is for the beginner in mind. Like if
Mhm.
you are more artsy, then I'm sure you'd still get stuff from it, but it's really truly for a true beginner. So whether you're like, I recommend at around 10 years old is sort
Okay.
of a natural age where kids were doing a lot of drawing. And then at age 10-ish, grade 5, 6 is when they transition to like words only and get rid of a lot of drawings.
Mhm.
So age 10 to whatever,
Okay.
Um, I have a lot of teachers that are using it to like teach themselves and then teach to their students. And I'm working this year with teachers to build some case studies around some different students with different learning disabilities or neurodiversities and things like that in different ages to kind of also learn from teachers on how they're using it in different ways in the classroom. So, but like I have an online community and a lot of people in the community currently, some of them are teachers, but then I have a lot of just like professionals. And and a lot of the people in the community are folks that have a lot of complexity in their work. So they're using it as like adding another like tool to their tool belt of like, when I'm in a meeting, how can I write things for myself or draw things so that I can communicate that to my team or to the leadership or to whoever. So it seems to be, you write it for someone in mind and then other people end up reading it. So I wrote it with people in mind who really want to leverage in their learning, right?
Okay.
Read something once, draw it, never have to read it again, right? How many times do we read something, we watch something and we forget most of it like the next day, right? You go to a conference, you hear all this information, you go to work on Monday, you don't remember anything, right? So to like the people who are a bit impatient, it's great. It's great because it forces you to draw it all down. Sometimes you have a time limit if you're doing it live, right? And you're like, it is what it is. Here we go. Okay. And it doesn't matter if it's like really messy or whatever, as long as it's important for your own learning, right? So, but yeah, so I wrote it with people in mind around the learning part, and I'm actually end up talking to a lot of people who are really wanting to learn for the complexity part of things. So it's really interesting. It's been a really interesting experience, when you put the book out there and see how people react to it. But as an example, like the first thing that we teach in the book is a line, right? A line isn't scary, right? But I just don't teach you to draw a line. I'm like, the reasons why you draw a line, right? So if you're going to draw something, it should help you with something else that you're listening to or learning about or trying to make connections on a page, right? So I think by the first half of the book is really like teaching some of those like foundational elements, like a line and then a container and how they build upon each other and why you use them, right? Because like you could see someone's sketch note, like kind of like the one that I have behind me here, and it looks like a piece of artwork. But if you pull out its essential elements, you can see, oh, I used line here to connect information. Oh, you used a container here. Oh, you used people in this way, right? You can start adding in more drawings like icons and how different icons can represent ideas. But like, I don't even talk about that till the end of the book. Because if you start with icons, then people get into like, oh, you have to learn how to draw, and that's too scary.
Right.
But I think everybody can get behind drawing a line, even if it's not a straight line, So I think you could draw a pretty amazing sketch note with your poor handwriting and some lines. And I think it wouldn't maybe it wouldn't be the most beautiful thing in the whole world, but wasn't meaningful. I hope so. Like, would it be helpful in your learning? That's where you have to leverage it and lean in on it.
That's awesome. And you start out, I think, with a very important message or a note. You say a vitally important note. You cannot do this wrong.
Yes, it's true. It's true. And I learned something recently that I really wish I would have known that there was science to back this up, because I mentioned on like the first page of the book around people who have this weird relationship with their creativity. And then I was listening to something that Brene Brown said in one of her audios, something I was listening to. And she said that in the men and women that she was researching, 89, I believe it was, percent of adults say that they had a negative experience at school in their childhood that forever changed them of how they thought about themselves as a learner. Okay. 89% of people had a negative experience that changed how the belief of how they learn. Okay. Half of those, about half, she didn't say the exact number, I'm sure it's written somewhere, but about half of that 89% had something to do with their creativity.
Yeah. Writing,
drawing, art, like whatever, something around their creativity. Right. So, that is probably one of the number one things that people will say to me, like, oh, I wish I could do that. I can't do that. Oh, I'm not creative. Oh, I'm not this. Oh, I don't do art. Oh, and I'm like, it's probably because you had a negative experience. And
Yeah.
whether you can remember it or not, like I remember my experience. I even had one in grade 4, and mine was particular around painting. So in my little childhood brain went, oh, I can't paint. So I didn't paint
Yeah.
for years and years and years.
Right.
Until I realized, oh, that was a belief that someone instilled in me. That's not fun. I'm going to change that. Right. But it wasn't until I started working with young kids, because that was my first career, was working with small children, and having to do creative things with them, and what does that look like. And I had to do a research project on an artist, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at these amazing artists out there. And I really love like folk art, because folk art is very it's very revered in my like rural community. Like there's like folk art people in here, and we have a festival and everything about it. But the thing around folk art is that you don't have to have any experience, and you usually do it on found materials or using found materials. So I love that. Like, I love the accessibility and like the lower barrier to entry to creativity in general that visual note taking or sketchnoting can have. Maybe that will encourage people to do other forms of creativity too. But usually I just have to honor where people are in that moment. And for them to even pick up the book, unfortunately, most people are going to have some sort of belief that they're creative. But I'm talking to a lot of people that I'm trying to help them like recognize that you probably have this belief for a reason outside of yourself, because we are all creative. And when I say that, it triggers a lot of people for a lot of different
Right. And it's funny that you said that, because just before we were before the show came on, I was telling you how I still remember my I got a D in art. And that, I appreciated you putting me in the book, because I'm one of those people that would say, all I can write is stick people. And I say it all the time. I say it all the time. I can't draw nothing but a stick person.
And a stick person is a beautiful thing. It's funny how we like, we say, oh, stick person. Oh, that's the lowest point. Like you can't go any lower than a stick person.
I still remember that I got that D in art.
Right.
The art teacher gave me a D, and I was an A student. And so I've grown up with the belief that I'm not.
What's her number? What's her name?
Right.
Get her
around. Let's call her.
But I grew up with the belief that I'm not artistic, and that I can't do that kind of stuff. So it's funny that you would say that. And Leah says that's so true. She said she remembers a negative experience she had in the 3rd grade. So it is those younger years that make an impression upon us.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And I feel like I've actually been calling this out. I did a workshop last week while I was away on my lunch break, because I already had it scheduled, and it was like 150 students who are going to be teachers, like they're in the program. Oh, wow. And I told them that I was like, hey, this is your responsibility. Don't mess it up. I was feeling very brazen that day. But I was like, we have to be careful. Like there's something, we have an extra sensitivity, I think, around, like not just our identity when someone's saying this to us, but there's something about our creativity that we, if someone says, oh, you're not good at math, you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Like it doesn't, some of those other subjects and things don't hurt as bad. I think you're like, I'm just not doing math, like whatever. But our creativity is like, part of who we are and how we are in the world. And creativity doesn't have to look like art. It can look like storytelling. It could like helping people connect. Like this, what you're doing here is a form of creativity, right? What do we need in workplaces nowadays? What are the skills that people are looking for? Critical thinking, creativity. You know what I mean? These are the things that are really helping people stand out. Like if you can bring creative ideas to a table, right? So it's you professionally, personally, like redefining what that creativity can look like for you and exploring, and that might be like a new experience, like in your 30s, 40s, 50s or beyond, of like, oh, maybe I am creative, and what does that look like for me?
Well, if I can make something like looks like what you have on hanging behind the wall, I feel like I was Picasso.
Well, you read that book, you do all the exercises because it has a lot of
I just
exercises
might
in
have to do that to change that perception.
Mhm. No, and I think that that is important because creativity again, we relegate it to the realm of, oh, I can't, drawing and maybe writing or something like that. We look
Mhm.
at it as, okay, what is the output? But you can
Yes.
be creative. My daughter is a braider. She can do things amazing with her
Right.
hair.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just, okay, she's creative. My husband can cook. He didn't figure that out until he was in his 40s,
Wow.
Yeah.
and it was just,
Really?
okay, he is creative in the kitchen. I
Wow.
always thought I was creative because I can draw, but the truth
Right.
is creativity is where I think, it gives it it's how your brain works, I think it is.
Right.
And if you can express, if you can use something like sketchnoting to express it, I think that that opens up the door to other things that you are talented or have skills or even would benefit you.
Yeah.
So,
Can
Yeah.
I ask a question? Can I ask a
Yeah.
question? All right. Ashton, let's just get to it. I'm sitting in a meeting. They
Yeah.
have 50 bazillion presentations going on slides on this PowerPoint thing going on.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
suppose we're and I'm a budget analyst, so we're talking budgeting, right?
Yeah.
How in the world can I translate sketchnoting to help me retain this
Mhm.
information they're trying to give me? And, another perfect example is that sometimes we have to go to what we call these finance academies, where they lay out new policies, new procedures that have come in. How would I use sketchnoting to
Mhm.
make something that I could look back at and say, these are the notes I took from this meeting? How do you use sketchnoting in that?
Okay. Oh my gosh. How much time do we have? Okay, I'll try to be concise. Okay. So first thing, what I try to encourage people to do is like go through the book, learn all the things, and build what I call your visual vocabulary and your visual
Okay.
language. It's like you're learning a new language.
Okay.
If you can't get behind like, oh, I can draw, can you get behind learning a new language?
I could get
Right?
behind that.
You can get behind learning a new language. So when someone says something, the trick is you already have the skills and you've built the muscle memory to do it.
Okay.
Right? You've drawn lines to connect ideas in different ways. You've done different containers. You know how to draw a box person, which is an upgrade from a stick person. You can learn about
I
that.
can draw a
Or
square.
a star person. They're great. They're cute. And then different icons. So this work, the way I like to look at it is kind of like you're never done. It's kind of like yoga. Like you're never done yoga, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
practice and you're always building your visual vocabulary. You're always working on it. But that trick is to practice it before you are in high pressure situations.
Got you.
Think about going into a high pressure situation without the language,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you know nothing about finance and you
Right.
go in and you're trying to understand the finance, let alone draw it or anything, right? If you're going to a room and they all speak Italian and you don't, like you are not prepared at
Got
all,
you.
right? So I like to encourage people to practice the skill of visual note taking or sketchnoting in less high pressure situations.
Okay.
Maybe do it in a team meeting if you really want to give yourself a challenge. Listen
Right.
to a TED talk, watch a documentary that you can pause and write things down and then start it again, right? Ease yourself into it with that skill so that when you hear something, you have the confidence built in that when you go into a situation where it is live, you have that confidence and that muscle memory. You've already drawn things before. You've already drawn your box people in a couple different ways. You've already drawn different lines, different containers, right? So that you're a little bit prepared. So that's
Right.
kind of like you can't just go through the book especially you don't do the exercise, you read it and you're like, oh, I could do this maybe. And then you go into this really high pressure situation where you're trying to
Got you.
remember all the things, right? So, and when you're practicing, you can learn little tips and tricks. And at the back of the book, I have like listening tips and synthesization tips. And then you can kind of lean in on your own, your own personal shorthand, right? I have a shorthand, but it might not be the same as your shorthand,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
I cut out little words like the, ands, like what can I, like, and I always make the ampersand for an and, so I'm not writing the word and. What little tips and tricks and things, but you only learn those things for yourself. There's little shorthands when you do the practice beforehand.
Gotcha.
Right? So where you're in a situation where there's a lot of information, maybe you're just really focused on capturing a whole bunch of information, leaving lots of white space, which we talk about in the book too, so that you can make those connections. Or when presentation 3 says something that presentation 1 says, you can go back presentation 1 and fill in a missing gap or something.
Okay.
Right? I think too, you can leverage sketchnoting in kind of a cheeky way too, of going to presenters if you're able to later and be like, is this what you said?
Oh, okay.
Is there anything missing here? Because, I actually have speakers that I work with ongoing, and they use me as like a reflection tool. They're like, if Ashton didn't get it, I missed something. Like I missed
wow.
Oh, wow.
and then I'll have a conversation with them and be like, this is what I heard, and this is what I captured, and this is why I captured it. And they'd be like, interesting, right? From a presenter perspective, it's like their own little, they use me as like part of their analyzing reflection phase, right? Which is kind of like really fun that they do that. Like I love talking to speakers afterwards. I will also say, if you're lost, good chance a lot of others are lost.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I have been in dozens, if not more, situations throughout my career where I was struggling. And I'm standing on a stage sometimes with like hundreds, if not more people. And I have people, like audience members, come up, or participants come up to me at the end of a presentation, and they're like, I have no idea how you drew anything. I didn't understand a word that presenter just said. And these are people working in the field that the presenter just spoke about. So I'm like, okay, if I'm struggling, there's a really high likelihood. And there was one time back in 2018 where I was on a stage with a very, very famous person. I'll tell you who it is after the call, if you want to know.
Yeah.
And
Inquiring minds want to know.
Drop the name now. And I struggled big time. There's like 1,500 people in this room, and I was all over the place. I was embarrassed because I felt like the graphic wasn't as nice as some of the ones I had done earlier that day.
Okay.
And the presenters came up, or the organizers came up to me the next day, and they were like, how was that? And I didn't want to lie because I felt like the work looked different or not as good. And I said, I'm not going to lie. I struggled. I tried my best. Sorry. These people flew me halfway around the world to be at this event. And they're like, yeah, we felt sorry for you up there. And I was like, okay. So that experience, along with lots of others, really told me if I'm struggling, I'm like, I'm not stupid. Like, I'm like fairly smart. Like, I don't have a lot of like university education or anything, but I'm not like dumb. If I'm struggling, then there's good chance a lot of other people are struggling too. Yeah. Right. So anyways, I don't know why I ended up on a tangent to tell that story, but hopefully that can help you think about in those sort of high pressure situations. You can kind of leverage it in different ways, but try to get some skills under your belt before you go into those high pressure situations.
How has your book been received thus far?
I think it's been really good. One thing that like I said, I've really been trying to talk with teachers a lot about it. Okay. So educating it's one of those funny things because people don't know it exists as like a thing, right? People are like, oh, I know what doodling is, but it's the education that it exists first, then to be like, oh, well, I wrote a book about it. Like, it's such a thing that I wrote a book. And there are a handful of books about it out there. But what I felt was missing was a beginner's guide.
Yeah.
Right. So some of the other books that are out there are really brilliant, but some of them are very art focused. Like the work in it is incredibly beautiful, which can be very intimidating for people. Right. I think if you struggle to channel intimidation into inspiration, then you might just stop it there and be like, I can't do this because it's not going to be beautiful right out the gate. Right. So it's been interesting because, and I'm not new to this whole educating, because as somebody who does this professionally and has been running a business for many years, you have to educate people on why they need you.
Mhm.
And then they're like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then they hire you. So, and that's why the majority of my work is, someone sees me in a room, virtually or otherwise, they're like this, and they had the experience of how powerful it was for them to feel seen or heard, or to connect to information in a different way. And then they're like, oh, you should come to our thing. Right. So it's one of these things that I'm more leveraging that experience, like other people who get the benefit of it, then how can others learn that they can do it for themselves? So I'm kind of taking a bit of maybe like a different and unique approach to it, because I know that the education piece is just not like people not knowing that this is actually like a thing that has like a structure if you want to structure it to get more benefit out of it.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's been really fun to talk with folks about it and
Good for you.
get their experiences. And now I'm like seeing people who've read the book and that are in my community, and I can mentor a little bit, and like they're like I could hire them tomorrow to work for me. Like they're amazing at it already.
Oh,
And I
nice.
feel like it took me years to get to the point where they are in like just a short few months, if not that, right? So it's been really fun since it's such a visual medium, you get to see how people are actually learning it, right? Which is different from maybe another like traditional nonfiction book where you're like most nonfiction books are idea books, unfortunately.
Right.
Mhm.
And I did a whole beta reading process where I had almost 100 beta readers over
Oh, wow.
3.5 rounds, provide 1,500 comments of
Oh,
feedback.
wow.
So that really, and taking my time in that beta reading process was incredibly valuable. And I'm so grateful to the beta readers who participated and read it and provided feedback for me, because it really shaped it to what it is today. And I really wanted to focus on it being a really high quality book and
Good.
had the information that people needed.
Yes.
And it taught me things that I thought were common sense that were not common sense, right? When you're doing it for so long, then you kind of fall into like, well, everybody knows this, right? No.
Right.
So the beta readers kept me in check, which was a really beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to harp on that. Please don't rush. And I'm talking to everybody out there listening. Please don't rush just to publish a book. All of the steps are valuable. And if you can take an extra few months or whatever time you need, get those beta readers, slow down, get whatever input you need so that your book is that much more valuable.
Amen.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Very true. Very true.
all
Well,
right,
I
Victoria,
just want to,
go ahead.
I just want to put something in there really quick. What happened?
No, I was just going.
No, I was looking at Victoria. Were you fit?
Yeah. She said, Victoria been talking, so I'm gonna be quiet.
Oh. Oh, what happened? What happened? I just have a quick thing, because most of what I needed to know or wanted to know you've covered in the comments and all that you've had with Victoria and with Ruth. But I like the fact that there's no wrong way to do it. I like the fact that it is mine. That my sketchnoting is not going to necessarily look like anybody else's. And I like the fact of having to understand this visual vocabulary. I just like that term. I like that. It sounds smart.
I don't think I came up with it. That's you. I'll take credit right now.
But how long, on average, beginner's guide, how long does it take someone, an average person, who has no art background or anything, who can just barely draw a line? How long does it usually take them to get to a point where this is a tool that they can effectively use?
That's a good question. It is, and yeah, it's definitely individual, but I would say, oh goodness, like, I think people should use it right away after learning this, like the basic skills. Like, even just focus on the first half of the book where you're learning the essential elements like lines and containers and things. Like, I would say do it right away, because there's nothing better than just like ripping the Band-Aid off and just trying it out. Right? Because you learn from each one that you do. You're like, oh goodness, I did like crowded everything on this one side and there's nothing on the other. Like, or like, oh, this information was together. I really should have moved it over here. But, that's from like an aesthetics perspective, because there's like, there's the journey of it, there's the process, and there's the product, which I think Ruth mentioned earlier about giving her examples with her family, right? And, people like to focus on the product of it. If you want it to be incredibly beautiful, I don't know, like 10, 20, 100 hours, like, I think it depends on how much of that building a visual vocabulary you want to do. Like, I would just throw out paper and just draw people, like hundreds of them, in like a half an hour. But I drew people way better at the end of that half an hour after just like drawing like hundreds of them as quickly as I could than I did in the beginning. So like these little people behind me, I can draw in like 5 seconds because I know I have confidence in my line and the muscle memory of it. So there's like the aesthetics of like, okay, it might take you a little extra time because you got to build in those art skills. But from a learning process, I think people could do it right away. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be beautiful, and that's why I lean on lines and little containers and little things to get someone started, that it can have a little bit of an aesthetic, like you're benefiting from the visual part of it, but it doesn't have to be beautiful. And I think that's a thing that people can kind of get hung up on. So I try to just tell people to just start doing it, knowing it's not going to meet your expectation of beauty in the beginning, but if you keep at it, right? Because even if it's crazily messy and your handwriting, you don't like it, the lines are wonky, did you learn something, right? Did you look at it a week later and go, oh, right, I remember what the presenter said because I captured it in this way, right? It's not just a bunch of words that don't mean anything. Because the problem with traditional note-taking is we hear and we write and we miss the making sense part. Visual note-taking makes you slow down a little bit, listen, make sense, understand, comprehend, then write it down. Right? So it can be as messy as it needs to be, but did it help you learn something? Did it help you understand something in a deeper way? Right? And that's what sold me on this work to begin with. Like, my work was wildly not beautiful those early years, but the first one I ever did, I was facilitating a group. I'd done it, didn't know what I was doing, put it away, took it out a couple months later, and I was just like blown away about how much I could remember. Right. And it wasn't even that beautiful, really. So like, I think in terms of time, like 0, I guess, after you read the book, to start to experience the benefits of the process of sketchnoting. Yes, it will take you more time to get into the aesthetics or the beauty of sketchnoting. But some people I work with don't even care about that part. Right. They're like, that beauty might come over time. I'm not going to put pressure on myself to focus on the beauty. I just want to focus on the learning parts of it.
Awesome. That's awesome. Ashton, thank you so much. Thank you. You've given us a ton of information tonight on a subject many of us, just didn't know was out there. And when you said to start it around 10 years old, I thought, whoo, where would I be now if I'd had this at 10 years old?
Right.
My goodness, this is just really, really fascinating to be able to do and to be affected by it the way that you can be. So I'm going to put call on Victoria to do what she does. So I'm going to ask if you want to focus better, if you want to learn faster, and if you want to remember longer. What do you want people to do, Victoria?
Get the book. Get the book. Get
That's right.
the book.
Lori.
That's
Look at it.
And because it's got lots of pictures, it's mostly pictures here,
I
people.
love it.
Yeah.
I love the book. It is I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated from, I'm
the
really
whole
just not
concept.
applying it.
Yeah, the whole concept
Really
of
am.
it.
And
So
could you tell our viewers and our listeners how they could get in touch with you and how they can get the book?
Yeah, I think probably the best place to head over is sketchnote.school. So the
Okay.
website www.sketchnote.school. That's
Mm-hmm.
all things learning how to sketchnote. Ebook, PDF version of the book is on there. Ways to buy the hard copy. You can buy it right on my website, or it will direct you to Amazon if you prefer Amazon. How to join my community is on there. There's a free and a paid, but the free space is a great. I've got a few hundred people hanging out in what we call the playground because we're fun. So we're all about just having fun, right? So Sketchnote School, the community is like set up like school. So the playground and the classroom. So the classroom is our paid community where people want to like do live workshops with me and really want to take their learning a little deeper. And the playground is free for anybody, so you can sign up for the playground on there as well, which is really fun. And we have I hosted a World Sketchnote Day on January 11th and had over 700 people from 64 countries
Wow.
a part of that online event. And the recordings from that event are on in the playground.
Wow.
In the free library resource guide, there's a bunch of free resources in the library as well. So there's like 4 hours, 3 hours of content from that event. And the guy who coined the term sketchnoting spoke at my event, and he's on there as well. The recording of his session, and he shows like us his sketch notes, which was basically his presentation of just walking through what does his everyday sketch notes look like, which was really interesting as well. And I have like a sketchnoting 101 workshop in the library too. So lots of free stuff.
And I want to note too that you did say in the I saw it, and I don't know if it's in or the start of the book, but you said if you want to look up the community of Sketchnote, look up hashtag Sketchnote, and you will find others who have talked about sketchnoting and all that. So I thought that was interesting too, that I could find out some more information if I wanted to know what sketchnoting was.
Yeah, go to Instagram and type in sketchnote, like do hashtag Sketchnote School or Sketchnote, and you'll find people from all around the world doing this, and so many different styles, and some are really simple in theirs, and some are really like beautiful, and kind of everyone in between. So yeah, definitely a fun hashtag to check out for sure.
Thank you.
Well, this has definitely been an informative Authors Up tonight. Ashton, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing this concept. And it is really amazing, and one I want to learn more about. That is for sure. That's for sure. Is there any final note that you want to give our audience before we close out tonight, Ashton?
Ooh, and it's on there too, y'all. Y'all better look it up.
I think I just want to take this moment to thank all three of you for the opportunity to just come and let me ramble on for a little bit. And I'm pretty sure we went well over our time, so I appreciate you letting me ramble.
Yeah, we are, but it's okay. It's okay.
and talk with you. I just really appreciate you, the three of you, and all that you do to uplift each other and new or budding or even experienced authors to be able to talk about their work and what they're passionate about. So I just really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you taking time to spend with us tonight, Ashton, and we want you to hang out for a little bit because we want to know who that person is. You're not
Don't hang up. Don't hang up.
I promise I won't.
Ruth, what's the final comment that you have tonight?
Oh, just, real quick, we want to thank all our listeners wherever you're coming from, either the podcast, YouTube, or you're live with us. We thank you. If you have any questions, comments, or interested about how to get on our show, email us at authorsup@gmail.com. Follow us on social media as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just look up Authors Up Show.
All right, that's it for tonight. We will be right back here next Sunday at 7 p.m. We have a replay of this broadcast on Saturday night coming up at 7 p.m. Oh, excuse me, I was getting ready to sneeze.
Bless you.
Sorry. I don't know how we can put that in a sketch note, but it's got to be okay.
It's a really awkward pose. Yeah.
There you go. But thank everybody. We thank you for being with us tonight. Share this broadcast, and share this information, because it is something that you would use, something that will help you to learn and help you to focus and do all those wonderful things it's designed to do. So thank you for tonight. And look, everybody have an absolutely fantastic week. Come on back next Sunday at 7 p.m. because you never, ever, 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 ever know what is going to happen on Authors Up.
Correct.
That's it for tonight. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night, Bronze Girls.
Thank you.